So at this point now, there's a phrase that we have in the music industry that we've used for years, and it was just taking care of business. And when you go out to play your instrument, you got to take care of business. How did that all happen where next thing you know, you're being heard by Elvis, and then you're in the touring band?
Well, that happened in '69. My friend that I was working together with had been contacted by Elvis's people, and he was putting a new band together for a big comeback tour thing or appearance in Vegas. And I got a call on a Friday night and said, "Can you get out here tomorrow night? We've been auditioning drummers for weeks now. We've tried everybody in town." And I said, "Well, airplanes, out there one day, drums, But I did it somehow, You could get away with those things back then. You can't do it now. I show up, and it was a kind of a funny evening. The drummer that came in was a well-known drummer. He had done a lot of Motown West stuff. And the band started playing. Elvis came in. I was sitting in the back, all the way in the back. I had my drums set up because I got there early. The guy walks in, and he sits down at my drums. And I heard him say something to somebody, and pretty soon I saw somebody point to the back, so he walks out halfway. "Hey man, can I use your tubs?" So what am I going to say? No, But so he plays, and everybody's reacting very positively, smiling, like, "Hey, we finally found the guy. This is it." Well, that's it. That's all for now. We're fine. Everybody's fine. Everybody's putting their axes away in the cases and this and that. And my friend Larry Mahobarak, is the one I was referring to, goes over to Colonel Parker's table. He says, "The guy you just bought a ticket for to bring him out here is back there." So Colonel Parker calls Elvis over, and I hear, "Hey, Elvis, guys, we got one more guy to listen to." You can kind of see him like, "Oh, man." So we play a couple of songs, I can't remember what. We immediately had a rapport, and we just kind of, like a jazz player would hear a line or a rhythm, you pick up on it and you move with it, and I did the same thing for Elvis. And I guess that's what made the difference, because they said, "Well, call us tomorrow and we'll let you know." And they said, "You got the gig," so it worked out pretty good. And I guess that's my point, because I guess later on, years later, I've met DJ Fontana, and we talked about how playing with Elvis was like playing with kind of like a stripper. He wanted you to fill and hit everything that he was, kick everything that he was doing, like you would maybe in a big band.
Yeah.
So I guess all those experiences paid off, because it was a really well-rounded group in a sense that could play almost any style. And I went from that right away, recommended for the Mike Post Orchestra, the Andy Williams show.
And where was that? That show was where?
L.A.
In L.A.? So
yeah, and I moved to L.A.
You moved to L.A., okay.
Yeah, which was my ultimate goal anyway.
And how much was Elvis touring at that time?
Not much at all.
Right.
Took a couple of years for that to start to go into fruition there.
So you get to L.A. now, so you're settled in L.A., and you're starting to work with musicians out there.
Yeah. Joined a band, Jerry Sheff, their bass player, was with Elvis. And I joined a group called Delaney and Bonnie and Friends, which was great rock and roll, great Southern rock and roll gospel, really down-home stuff. That lasted about a year, and then Elvis decided to go back out again, and it would pick back up,
So you get the call back in L.A.
Yeah.
Elvis is going out.
Yeah.
Elvis was still based out of Memphis.
Yeah, basically that was home for him.
Interesting. So how was it with the musicians and playing and the touring? I mean, the intensity of Elvis and just the greatness of it all. How was this to kind of take in mentally?
It was spectacular. He kept us on our toes, because he'd just turn around and say, "Give me an E chord," or "Give me a B flat," whatever. And he'd just start singing. And he sang hundreds of songs, and we had to know them.
So you didn't know what he was going to call.
No.
But you had to be prepared.
That's right.
Boy, talk about preparation.
Preparation is very, very important.
Yeah.
And I guess that's really my point about the whole audition thing, because two of the most major gigs I've done in my life were with Elvis and Neil Diamond on down in 81.
Yeah.
The preparation it took to be ready to walk in and sound like I'd been doing the drum parts for all my life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I guess it's not only enough to do really, really well when you get a chance to play for somebody.
Yeah.
You got to be mentally prepared as well. You got to have all the preparations in order. In other words, you know, not only just your chops because that's not what got it for you.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you have to be not only mentally prepared, you've got to be skilled from your instrument. You have to know your instrument really well.
Well, absolutely.
And you got to know all these tunes. So how did you, preparation, well, this is such a great line, because that's kind of what, in these interviews with this next generation and future generations as they watch this, they have to understand what it means to prepare. So what did you do to prepare for these songs? It was a lot of listening, rehearsing on your own?
Listening to the tapes that had been previously done and making notes to myself on a big legal pad. You know, each song, instead of writing out a rhythm section chart or a drum chart per se, I did if it had to be, you know, difficult.
Right.
But anything I could do to just highlight notes for things that I could review in my own mind as I went through them.
So you made personal notes on your own.
Personal notes.
And then specific, drumistic notes, we'll call them, chart notes that you knew if you had a section. But listening is difficult to do, because you have to have, years ago it was a lot more difficult. Today, on your little phone, you can listen to thousands of songs.
Absolutely.
We had records years ago, so were you set up with a record player? How'd you listen to all this stuff?
Well, it was kind of in between records and cassettes.
Yeah.
Listening to both a lot.
Yeah, so you just kept on listening.
Yeah.
So you're with Neil, so you're still living in LA at this time. How'd you meet up with Neil Diamond?
Audition.
You
audition again.
Interesting.
I did a session with our bass player, my old longtime friend, Ronnie, who had been with the band for quite a while. We were doing a date in town, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and on a break, he came over and he says, "Keep it under your hat, but you're not going to be with Neil any longer, and your name has kind of come up in the hat," because I knew all the guys in the band.
Right.
And then I get this phone call, said, "Sure enough, they want you to come in and be available for so-and-so." Well, I'd already taken a 2-week gig with Garcia.
Jerry Garcia,
Yeah. And we were doing a thing around New York State, all the colleges up in northern part of the state up there. So here we are traveling in a trailer, which we never did with Garcia, but it gave me a perfect time to have headphones on and a cassette. I'm making notes for it. In the meantime, Neil started rehearsing with Hal Blaine. So he was our rehearsal drummer. And Neil said he would wait until I came back per their recommendation. So when it came time to play, the pressure was on.
The pressure is on because Neil Diamond waited for you.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That he would put everything on pause to wait for you to come in. So you came in, but again, it goes back to that preparation. What was it like that first time playing with Neil Diamond?
Pretty amazing. I was a nervous wreck, but I was prepared. So I knew, well, this is the best I can do. I can't do any better than this. With Elvis, the rehearsals were so lax and so they'd go on for hours, however long he felt like it, for lengths of time. Neil's stuff was much more, I would say, complicated.
Yeah, sure. So there was less flexibility with Neil's band as there was maybe with Elvis's.
Right.
Interesting. So that discipline of being on the road. Now you're traveling, you're hitting the road, you're going everywhere. What was it like traveling at that time? Was it, you guys were a close family with the musicians, right?
It develops into a close family.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be difficult until everybody gets used to everybody's little quirks, but you learn that that's the only way you can survive that kind of thing, is to be just like you do in a family. You have to overlook a lot of things that you would, if it was your own gig, that's one thing. And, it wasn't like the Ron Tutt band. It was, or I wasn't there as an individual virtuoso player. I'm still trying to function as a working musician.
But how you supported the music in all those times, and I'd study you with Elvis and Neil and with Jerry Garcia. We'd hear you playing. You always laid the groove in the pocket so clear, and whatever fill you played, it was exactly supportive of what had to happen at that moment.
I just always tried to be as musical a player as I could, because there again, that's what I was most attracted to. Having, blinding fast chops is impressive.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're younger. But you learn that that's really not what it fulfills you as a player yourself, personally.
Is there any one performance that stands out that might have sparked something where maybe was your greatest lesson? Were there lessons to be learned when you were on the road? Anyone that stands out, that's something that just a performance someplace with someone that just was an eye-opener for you? What was that like?
Well, other than the magnitude of numbers that we'd run across every once in a while, first one we did was a big eye-opener with Elvis, was playing the Astrodome. It was 50,000 people, and at that time, that was a lot of folks.
Absolutely.
And then we went from that to play a New Year's Eve gig. It was 110,000 at the Pontiac Silverdome. Now, in the last few years, we did a gig with Neil at the Glastonbury Festival in England.
Which is 180,000 people. It's ridiculous.
Oh, it was just, it was wild to look out there and see that many. It looked like an attacking army, with all their posts and flags. And it was crazy. I mean, I'm making a joke of it, and you learn that no matter what happens on stage, because at that show, with all of that going on, somebody tripped an electrical wire, and we didn't have any sound. So King Harrison, our percussionist, and I just kept playing, and everybody just started clapping, and we played for several minutes until they figured it out and fixed it. You do that kind of stuff. You really are in this business part. No matter how you feel, you're going to go out there and play.
You got to give 100% every time.
I know.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty powerful that you have had these levels of experiences and you have really moved an industry forward, because those are big gigs. That's a big part of music history. It's absolutely fantastic. And just to have the Musicians Hall of Fame here in Nashville, that is an amazing museum of historical stuff, and you're in there, as with all that you have done, so it's amazing to witness that they've captured the history here in Nashville. But you really have been someone that has been steady, and you have been at the top of your game so many years of what you've done. In closing, what would you say to this next generation as far as any advice or motivation that they can use so they can attempt to achieve their dream in the music industry?
Well, I think it's so important to come to a realization, kind of get an understanding, and a profound understanding that you're doing something that is almost more important than you are. And that is that you are contributing to people's having a good time or being happy.
Yeah.
You can fight it all your life like Leonard Nimoy did. I am not Spock. And you can resent all of that, because we would resent people trying to get, we go into a hotel, people would try to talk to us because they're trying to get to Elvis.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, all these, that is the nature of that part of. But on the other hand, I think it's important to realize that for a very short period of time in a person's life, whether it be a day or 2-hour concert or whatever it is, the music that you've played and contributed to and been involved with means a lot more to somebody than you even get an inkling of. I think that's what keeps me going.
Well, I'll tell you something. From my perspective of studying this instrument, you have reached me at a high level. And millions of other musicians that have seen those performances, that have witnessed it, that were inspired by it, and that will remember those performances for the rest of their lives. So you did just that. You brought great happiness and inspiration to all these people. That's the power of Ron Tutt.
Well, thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of the sessions. Great job, Ron. Thank you so much.
Thank you.